Perhaps you should have our war tomorrow when you're better rested. I should have you whipped for your impudence.
Perhaps you should fight him.
Achilles. Achilles. Look at the men's faces. You can save 100 of them. You can end this war with a swing of your sword. Let them go home to their wives.
Imagine a king who fights his own battles. Wouldn't that be a sight?
Of all the warlords loved by the gods, I hate him the most. Is there no one else?
All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? In today's video, we will be covering the 7.3.0 patch notes that just came out today. Yeah. The plan as of now is still to stream tonight and go through some changes and do that stuff live. If you want to go check that out, you can go to twitch.tv/istherenoonelse and go check that out for yourself. You know, just testing different sets and whatnot. If you want to ask questions, rant, rave, talk about stuff you're excited for, other changes you still want to see, feel free to hop over and do that there. You can do it in the comments section, but you guys know what it is. It's patch note time. We're going to discuss the PvP related changes. So if you're here looking for, you know, insight into dungeons or trials or how that's going to boost your DPS or your tanking ability, you've come to the wrong place. I'll provide some opinions if I think I have one, but more often than not, you're better off going to one of the other PvE related channels like Alcast, Nephis, Skinny Cheeks, etc., etc. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. All right, welcome to the Elder Scrolls Online 7.3.0 in the beginning of the Legacy of the Bretons year-long adventure. So here's the intro, table of contents. So we got 2 new dungeons. I know you guys are shocked. Coral Airy, Shipwright's Regret. So 2 new dungeons, which means new gear and everything. So let's go through the item sets. Maligalig's Maelstrom, Light Armor, Max Magicka, 4% healing done. 4-piece adds 129 weapon and spell damage. 5. On overhealing yourself or a group member with a direct heal, applying Maligalig's Maelstrom to the target for 6 seconds, it deals shock damage to enemies within 7 meters. This damage is based on 33% of the overhealed amount, up to 3,300. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. So a way for healers to deal damage. Interesting. Yeah, there's a few overhealing sets, and I'm very, very curious about that sort of thing. We'll have to see. I mean, the base amount being, well, up to 3,300. It's not nothing. I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit gimmicky, but I mean, I like that they're trying something new instead of just healing done or whatever. But yeah, overhealing allows you to deal damage. So interesting stuff. Griffin's Reprisal. Medium armor, critical chance, offensive penetration, critical chance. When you deal critical damage, you or an ally can activate Griffin's Reprisal on the enemy for 8 seconds, causing a small griffin to fly by and deal bleed damage over 10 seconds to enemies within 5 meters. The synergy can be applied once every 20 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. So we'll have to see how much damage this is. It's a dot. So it's a synergy bleed damage dot. Interesting. I'm very curious because is there a bleed damage? Or is there a synergy dot that exists in the game? Like I know there's dots that you can activate a synergy, but is there a synergy that's actually a dot? Because I'm very curious as to how much damage this is. It all is going to come down to that. Going to be buffed by Harmony. How hard is that going to hit? This could be good. It could be bad. We have to see what the numbers are. Glacial Guardian, heavy armor. armor, max stamina, health recovery after successfully blocking from an enemy within 8 meters, tethered to them for 8 seconds. While tethered, you deal frost damage every second to enemies touching the tether and cause them to have a 200% increased status effect chance. The tether breaks if the target moves more than 12 meters away, can be applied once every 12 seconds and scales off your max health. Okay, so 4-second cooldown, so 75% uptime at best. It depends on how much damage it is. 200% increased status effect chance is not nothing. So that's definitely something to check out. Looking at like DK style builds to make this effective. You know, maybe double sword and board DK, mag DK returns with something like this. I don't know. We'll have to see what the damage number is. We'll see how many different status effects you can proc and all those other sorts of fun things. Monster Mask Cargata. Hopefully I said that right. Max magic and max stamina. 2-piece on dealing damage with a heavy attack. Oh, another heavy attack monster set. Okay. Create a whirlwind that slowly moves forward for 8 seconds, growing by 3 meters every 3 seconds. Enemies within the whirlwind take shock damage and physical damage every second, so there's a number there. Allies within the whirlwind reduce their magic and stamina cost by 10%. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds, and the damage scales out the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, not only is it a proc dot or an AoE proc damage thing, but you also get 10% reduced cost while your allies are fighting in it. That's very, very interesting. 10% reduced cost is a lot. I mean, not that sustain is very hard to get right now, but 10% isn't nothing. Shipwright's Regret, Storm Cursed Revenge, light armor, max magicka, weapon and spell damage. Offensive penetration. When you deal shock damage, you have a 15% chance to deal shock damage to the enemy and up to 2 other enemies within 5 meters. 15% chance to deal shock damage. Depends on the amount of shock damage. This effect scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Okay. 15% chance to deal shock damage to the enemy and up to 2 other enemies within 5 meters. Okay. So it's a very small AoE. Depends on what the shock damage is. Once again, like all these procs, it just depends on what it is. So I'm not going to say that anymore. Spriggan's Vigor. So we got another Spriggan set. Critical chance, max stamina, weapon and spell damage. Okay. When you deal critical damage, you gain a stack of wild growth for 5 seconds and restore 100 stamina, 10 stacks max. So up to 1,000 stamina. Each stack of wild growth increases your max stamina by 222. This effect can occur once every 0.5 seconds. So 2,200. So it's a recovery and max stamina set. Seems kind of underwhelming, to be honest. Turning Tide, maximum health, maximum stamina, maximum health. After successfully blocking, you gain flowing water for 10 seconds, causing your next bash attack to deal magic damage to up to 6 enemies in a 10-meter line, and apply major vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 10%. The effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales off your max health. This set is very interesting to me. This set I actually think could be useful. So after successfully blocking, gain this flowing water. Your next bash attack, which is now reverberating bash, should just be a bash. So if you bash cancel or power slam should all count for bash changes. Magic damage, whatever, but the major vulnerability for 10 out of 15 seconds. Now there's other sets that give major vulnerability, Kin Marcher for instance. Kin Marcher's RNG though. And so I am not saying Kin Marcher is bad or anything like that, but it's not predictable to know when you're going to have the vulnerability. This is. And so it's very interesting to know that you can essentially have on-demand major vulnerability as a backbar set. So small scale groups, somebody running this would actually be very effective. You bash somebody and now they have major vulnerability on them. And so, major vulnerability is a very nice buff, and the fact that you can apply this on whoever you want. So if there's that troublesome healer and you're taking incoming damage, you bash them. Obviously they can purge, but maybe you can coordinate burst. I don't know if this set's good or bad, but having that kind of buff and having that kind of ability to cast on people is interesting enough to test, in my opinion. All right, and finally, we have the set that can potentially break the game the most. Nazare's Monster Mask. Max health. When you use an ultimate ability, the closest 6 enemies within 12 meters have all damage over time, major debuffs, and minor debuffs applied to them extended by 1 second per 25 ultimate spent. This effect will not apply to damage beams or damage tethers. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds per target. So the reason this is most interesting is because it has the biggest chance to break something in the game. Now, how I picture this buff is it doesn't say that it's your just your dots or just your debuffs that you're applying. It says everything that's applied to them. So other monster sets should also be applied to them, like Zon. Now, it does say damage beams do not count. So Zon should not count. But if it's not coded properly and Zon does count, it will be the most broken two-piece thing you can do. So you wait till somebody procs on and then you extend it and then you laugh when they just literally can't do anything. So those should be whatever. But the first thing I thought of that could actually work was Kin Marcher. Kin Marcher applies 5 major debuffs. You have Cowardice, you have Maim, you have Defile, you have Vulnerability, and you have another one. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but you have 5 major debuffs that work like Trickery. You can have 2 to 3 rotating buffs, and you can now potentially extend those debuffs. And so extended duration of major Defile means that it's going to be harder for them to heal, which means resources will be expended more quickly. If they have major vulnerability on them, major vulnerability, just like we talked about, is one of the better buffs in the game as far as dealing damage to an enemy. And so if you can extend that to somebody, make it take more damage, that means that they're going to have to expend more resources to stay alive. And so the burst and survival can potentially go down quite a bit. The other things I looked at that I'm looking to test, are things like Venomous Claw. Venomous Claw scales 20% every 2 seconds. So this set is 1 second per 25 ultimates spent. So every 100 ult that you use, you get 4 seconds. So and upwards of 20 seconds added. So if you add 20 seconds onto Venomous Claw, you're gonna have what is it, 30 seconds? 30 seconds of Venomous Claw scaling by 20%. The last couple of ticks are going to be pretty ridiculous. So if you can't purge, like this is going to be, or cloak, this is going to be a little problematic to deal with for incoming damage. The other thing is with 500 ult, you're going to have such a long time on those buffs that you could probably rattle off another ult in there and extend them once again. So classes that can't purge, this could be very, very tough to deal with. And so Kin Marcher, Venomous Claw, or other types of Defile builds, types of Defiles that you can have in this game. Maybe you're a Necromancer and you're stacking Smash Ult with Blast Bones and you want a few other things on the enemy, like you're applying Major Fracture, and like maybe you can apply a ton of major debuffs as well as a couple dots to really be an annoyance. This set looks very, very interesting, and I'm very curious to see how it works with all these other things. And once again, guys, I know coding sometimes just is off. And so the other thing I'm interested in seeing is Incapacitating Strike. Incapacitating Strike allows you to do 20% more damage to the enemy. If this is encoded correctly and applies to Incap, that could be really, really nasty. And so all these sorts of things are things like, oh man, like this could be bad. Like this could be pretty crazy. This could be pretty crazy. And so depending on, what's done here, it's the first week of the PTS, we'll see what's going on with it and test this one for sure. That one will definitely be tested on the PTS. New achievements and titles, new motifs, new furnishing. Not a housing endgame player, guys. I am sorry. We will not be going through that because I'm just out of my league with that. New PvP item sets. Rewards of the worthy. Rallying Cry. Critical chance, max magicka, critical chance. While Battle Spirit is active, critically healing yourself or an ally causes you and up to 11 other members within 12 meters to gain 300 weapon and spell damage and 1,650 critical resist for 20 seconds. Each group member affected reduces the weapon and spell damage by 15 and the critical resistance by 83. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. Wow. While Battle Spirit is active. So as long as you're in PvP, if you're critically healing, you're gaining 300 weapon and spell damage and 1650 critical resist. This is just replacing. This is a good set. This is a really good set. So it's reduced by up to So if you have 11 other group members, it is 115. So it's roughly 160 reduced weapon damage. So you get 140. 83. Oh, I know this is really bad math. 800. So they're halved roughly. So it'll be 800-ish critical resist and 140-ish weapon damage if you have a full 12-man group with this. So interesting stuff. So that's not as good, obviously. It's not like you need a ton of critical resist in the game, in the current state of the game, but there are a few builds that crit and do hit pretty hard, and just basically neutralizing all critical builds just by running a set that also gives you 300 weapon damage and spell damage. I mean, it's going to be reduced a little bit, obviously, but if you're running in a 2, 3, 4-man group, this is a very nice set. This is a very nice buff your group set with weapon damage. Like, obviously, it's not going to be as good as a damage set as some of the other ones, like Spell Power Cure and that trial one. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. It's not as much weapon damage, but if somebody else is already running that set, like if you're running dual Magplars, for instance, I mean, why would you run dual Magplar in this patch? The class is just not very good. But if you decide to do that, you can stack weapon and spell damage and stack 2 sets and stack on top of each other and you know, be really cute that way. So, yeah, man, like that looks like a pretty solid set to me, like as a secondary group style set. So yeah. Yeah. Hue and Sunder, max stamina, weapon and spell damage. When you deal damage with a heavy attack, another heavy attack set. Gain 1236 offensive penetration for each enemy within 8 meters of your target for 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 7 seconds. Holy crap. Holy crap. That's a good set, I think. When you deal damage with a heavy attack, gain 1236. So if you're kiting around corners and you're doing your 1vx thing and you go around a corner, and they all pile up after you and you do a full heavy. Let's say you hit four people. 4 people is almost the equivalent of stun for penetration. Plus, a full heavy attack with a 2H also gives you that 10% damage on your next attack. So if you do a full heavy Dawnbreaker, you get all that penetration added to your Dawnbreaker. Or you run dual wield, obviously, and then you do your Dawnbreaker spin win. Like, this looks nasty for Dawnbreaker spin to win builds. And I know they're already running Plague Break. I understand, but this is seemingly a lot of damage. Like, this is going to scale. Like, in some fights, you guys, I mean, we've all been zerged down before, where you just have 20 people on you. My goodness, if you can get a heavy attack off, and you hit 10, 15 people. Like an 8-meter radius in a tower, like you can easily hit 10 people with this, or 8 people or whatever. So you're telling me you're gonna have like 10k pen? Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's a very interesting set. We will have to compare that because, yeah, I mean, obviously you're not going to be fighting outnumbered all the time, and like this could be very, very niche, or that 5-piece could honestly be good enough, like 1v1. 1236. It's okay 1v1, but this is more of a 1vx set. More of a 1vx and more of a ball group set. All right, enough talking about that. Sometimes you read a set and it's very confusing, and you have to try and figure it out. So that's what I was doing there. I haven't read these yet. Enervating Aura, heavy attack. Or heavy armor, not heavy attack, healing taken, max health, armor. When you deal direct damage, you have a 10% chance to create an area under the target that detonates after 1 second, applying Enervating Aura for 10 seconds. Enervating Aura lowers the health recovery, magic recovery, and stamina recovery of enemy players by 129 per player hit. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. Jesus. So this is a DK set. So you can just run this back bar on a DK, and your volatile armor will put that under them. It depends on how big the range is and how big the circle is. 1 second. I don't know. Depends on how big the circle is, really. But that is not nothing. That is not nothing. It's definitely worth looking at. Imperial City sets. Once again, guys, if you've been following my channel for a while, I'm critical when we need to be critical, and I also compliment ZeniMax when I think that they do a really good change in something that's recommended. And I was talking about how bringing new monster sets is very good for Imperial City, and so it's good that they keep doing this. So thank you, ZeniMax. Thank you for listening to players on this. Sincerely, I appreciate it. I really do. I think this is awesome. So I guess I maybe shouldn't say that before we read what the sets do, but that's okay. Like that's fine. Some adding stuff into Imperial City is nice. Getting more people to go in there. 1487 armor, none attack. On dealing frost damage, create an area under the target for 6 seconds that applies chilling bite every second. Chilling bite deals frost damage, implies a stacking 25% snare for 4 seconds. At 4 stacks, the enemy is immobilized and gains major brittle for 4 seconds, causing the target to take 20% increased critical damage. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales up the higher of your weapon or spell damage. All right, so we know the deal with frost damage. This is a warden setup. Area under the target, does it move with them? How big is the circle? Once again, chilling bite deals frost damage. How much frost damage? 25% snare. Stacking 25% snare, so 25, 50, 75, 100. That's really nasty, especially if you go in with permafrost and you're already snaring them to begin with. You're just not going to be able to move. At 4 stacks, the enemy is mobilized and gains major brittle. So we're talking like potential really big boy subterranean assaults and shocks or shock damage. 20% increased critical damage. Does anything else really do? That's an interesting set. I'm not a huge fan of snares. I'm not, but I can see this having its niche with a class that's really having a hard time finishing people. And although I wish it wasn't a snare, especially a permanent snare that gives major brittle, it's the first week of the PTS. We'll see what it is and see what it does, and we'll see what we got to do to counter it. Lady Malidga, 1487 offensive penetration. Giggity. When you deal direct damage to a target within 12 meters, create an area that... Lots of area sets. And area sets have never really been good. Create an area that after 1 second quickly moves forward and then returns, dealing shock damage and applying minor enervation for 5 seconds, causing the target to deal 10% less critical damage. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales up the higher your weapon or spell damage. Okay, depends on how much shock damage. The major enervation is, honestly, it's kind of but okay. Baron Thirsk, stamina and magic recovery. On dealing area direct damage, mark a target for 6 seconds. After 2 seconds, every 2 seconds after, an explosive scamp is spawned nearby and detonates after 1 second, dealing magic damage to up to 6 enemies within 4 meters and applying minor timidity for 10 seconds, draining 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. Each explosive scamp spawn deals 100% increased damage. This effect can occur once every 25 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Okay, so you get 3 scamps. You get 3 scamps, and each one does double the damage of the previous one. And it reduces ultimate. Interesting. This will also be one that we have to test. New outfit styles. Nice. Imperial City Vaults. Very, very nice. Once again, thank you for that, Zos. More reason to go down Imperial City Sewers to get a new outfit and look pretty. Multi-rider mounts. Awesome. I've been wanting to test. I've wanted a duo mount for a very long time. That's awesome. New furnishings. Not for me. Combat and gameplay. Quests and zones, dungeons and group content, housing, quests and zones, exploration and itemization, quests and zones, dungeons and group content, combat and abilities. Player abilities that scale with your offensive stats, such as weapon damage and max stamina, will now dynamically scale with the highest of your offensive stats. As a heads up, the following abilities have not received adjustments through scaling. Backlash and its morphs final damage, conjured ward and morphs, annulment and morphs. Okay. Player abilities that grant major savagery, prophecy, brutality, or sorcery will now grant both of their respective versions, such as savagery and prophecy, those are the crit chance ones, in efforts to reinforce the accessibility of hybrid stat gaining. Very, very interesting. So, note that player passives and consumables that grant the minor versions of these have not been adjusted at this time in order to preserve class unique power contribution for coordinated groups. Okay. So now Rally provides major brutality and major sorcery. Entropy provides brutality and sorcery. So if you feel like you're shoehorned into running a 2H for Rally, you no longer have to run Rally. You can get it with Entropy. And yeah, major brutality with Entropy is interesting. Players having access to running like forward momentum or rally is also very interesting. Dragonite, Ardent Flame, Fiery Breath. Girls are in the back talking. Engulfing Flames, this morph's bonus damage taken now scales with a mixture of your weapon and spell damage, rather than spell damage and max magicka. This cap is reached when your combined weapon and spell damage is over 9,000. Okay, well that's really easy to reach. Pretty easy to reach, I think, on most setups. We'll have to go look and compare. But most setups that are running like 4, 5, 6k spell damage typically have like 3, 4k weapon damage. We'll have to go look to confirm, but yeah. Okay. Burning Embers. Change. This ability now heals for up to 100% of the damage done anytime it deals damage, rather than up to 75% of the total damage done when the effect ends. Fix an issue where this morph's heal could critically strike, despite being based off of damage that could already critically strike. This change was made to help offer the Dragonite more steady healing in the midst of combat, rather than locking the heal behind a more burst-like window where it comes in massive clumps, since much of the Dragonite's healing currently comes in bursts while their sustained healing is weaker. Additionally, this will fix many issues where the healing from the current iteration can return significantly higher than intended in some situations, as well as fixing numerous issues where the heal value was incorrect when recasting the ability before the duration ran out. Okay, so I get why they did this, because they just said why they did this. Sometimes the burst heal disappears when you're kiting and everything, but this skill was already incredibly powerful for Dragonites. And so they buffed the heal by allowing it to deal 100% of the damage done, and now it's a hot, and so now it's going to tick. And before, in the past, I know I've seen quite a few Dragonite builds that haven't been running Embers in recent time. It doesn't come off my bar personally, but I've seen it. Now it's just going to be on your bar, because if you hit 2 or 3 people with this, that is a ridiculous amount of healing. Somebody was comparing it to like Vigor, and it was very similar on one cast to one per. It was in my Discord. We'll test it. I will do a video, but I saw combat metrics that was showing that it was very similar to like a Vigor tooltip. And so going offensive is essentially going to give you stacking Vigors for each person you hit with Embers. You can just stay on your front bar indefinitely. Yeah, I don't see how this stays. I don't see how this stays in its current form, to be honest. Like, that is really, really strong. I understand the hot, I understand the heal over time and everything, and like that makes sense. But it wasn't as powerful because you couldn't always recast on somebody to get the burst on each individual person. Now you can cast and you can just get the free heals from 3, 4, 5 people. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. Draconic Power, Spiked Armor. The return damage from this ability and its morphs now scales off a mixture of your physical and spell resistance rather than spell damage and max magicka to help reinforce its identity of a tank ability. Okay. Volatile Armor Morph. The area of effect damage from this ability now scales off your physical and spell resistance as well rather than spell damage and max magicka. Okay, so higher damage dealing Volatile Armors. Necromancer, Bone Tyrant. Bone Goliath. Pummeling Goliath Morph. Fix an issue where this Ultimate's Bash override did not receive the cost and cooldown adjustments that the core mechanic Bash got. Can now also proc enchants or poisons. Alright. Okay. Gravelord, Shocking Siphon, Mystic Siphon. Fix an issue where this morph's Magicka Restore was lower than the tooltip stated. Okay. Skeletal Mage, Skeletal Archer, the Stamina Morph. Fix an issue where this morph's damage was not increasing per attack as stated. Okay. Well, maybe this will be useful. Because yeah, I don't remember the last time I saw a Necromancer, Stamina Necromancer running Skeletal Mage. Living Death, Restoring Tether. Fix an issue where this ability and its morph's ally healing were considered single target instead of area of effect in some cases. All right. The heal from all these abilities and their tooltips will now properly be tracked as area of effect. All right. Assassin's Blade for Nightblade. Killer's Blade Morph. Fix an issue where this ability could fail to be recognized as a class or execute ability in some rare cases. Okay. Grim Focus. Fix an issue where the override for this ability in the Morph Assassin's Will was 30 meters instead of the standard 28. Okay. Teleport Strike, the Gap Closer. Fix an issue where this ability in its Morph's tooltip stated it had an instant cast time, rather than its true 400 millisecond cast time had since time immemorial. All right. Shadow, Path of Darkness. Made some back-end improvements to this ability and its morphs to improve performance. Refreshing Path. This ability now heals one less time over its duration as a result of the back-end adjustment as mentioned above, but its total healing has been increased to ensure no changes in overall power have been made. Interesting. Siphoning. Strife, which is Swallow Soul. Increase the damage of this ability and the funnel health morph by 5.6%. Okay, so Swallow Soul does not get the buff. Sorry. Just funnel health. I don't see the unmorphed version in this being good at all. So they do need to be buffed, but I don't think this is enough. All right, Sorcerer, Dark Magic, Crystal Shard, Crystal Weapon, Morph. This ability will now replace Imbue Weapon or its morphs after casting to help reduce the amount of burst potential it can offer with singular moments. Yes, this has been something that's been happening for a while. Imbue Weapon and Crystal Weapon can stack, and you hit with an Overload Light Attack, and Overload procs, which is an ultimate that does a ton of damage. Imbue Weapon and Crystal Weapon all stack at the same time, creating a lot of burst with one light attack. You stack that with another proc set, like Kjolnir or something, and you create a very large amount of burst that's very, very tough to deal with. And so, yeah, makes some sense. Makes a lot of sense to not be able to stack those. Aedric Mines. Fix an issue where this ability and its morph scaling coefficients did not match the expected ratio. I'm expecting a ratio of one weapon or spell damage to 10.5 magicka or stamina. This will result in it scaling less effectively with weapon or spell damage, but more effectively with max magicka or stamina. Okay. We'll have to see how much more effective it is. I don't know if mines are going to make it on many bars. In case, Shattering Prison. Fix an issue where this ability's damage was not considered an area of effect in many cases. All right. Daedric Summoning, Bound Armor. Bound Armaments. Fix an issue where this ability was not being considered direct damage in some cases. All right. Storm Calling, Lightning Form. So their armor buff. This ability's morphs now last 20 seconds at base, up from 15 to properly match the standard duration of armor buff abilities. All right. Boundless Storm, the Magicka morph. This morph now ranks up to 30 seconds at rank, up from 23. Okay. This morph no longer ranks up 1.1% damage done per rank. All right. Hurricane. The area of effect from this morph now grows at 8 and 15 seconds rather than 6 and 11. Reduce the damage bonus per tick to 8%, down from 10%. The total bonus will reach 160% at max stacks, up from 150%, resulting in slightly more damage. All right, just a lot of maneuvering for very similar results, I think. Aedric Spear, Burning Light. This passive now only deals magic damage rather than magic or physical damage, but continues to scale off your highest stats. All right, Focus Charge, Explosive Charge. Fix an issue where the damage from this ability cannot be dodged, similar to Stampede or Brutal Pounce. Okay. Piercing Javelin. This ability and its morphs now bypass block to live up to their name. So Templars now have an unblockable stun. Single target unblockable stun. It is what it is. Not too worried about it. Yeah. Puncturing Strikes. Biting Jabs morph. This morph now grants Major Brutality and Sorcery for 10 seconds after casting rather than Major Savagery for 8. At Sunfire, Aldi grants Major Savagery and Prophecy now. So the Stamina Morph gives you Major Brutality. Interesting. That's very interesting. I wonder if you can stack enough healing to not use Rally on a Templar. It's just an open opportunity. I mean, when I first look at it, I know Templar healing, Stamplar healing is a little lacking, but maybe with scaling Bubble, potentially, if it's in here, where Bubble is now going to scale with weapon and spell damage a little bit better. Bubble's already been ridiculous, but yeah, it's possible. It's possible that you might not need Rally, which would be crazy. Very, very interesting. Spear Shards. Increase the range of this ability and its morph to 28 meters, up from 25. Reduce the radius of these abilities to 6 meters, down from 8 meters, to match their visual effects and proper power budget. Sun Shield, Radiant Ward. Increase the shield scaling per enemy hit to 20%, at rank up from 9%. Okay. The Radiant Ward morph. I don't know what this morph is off the top of my head, so I can't tell you exactly what that is. Dawn's Wrath Eclipse. Living Dark. Reduce the snare potency of this morph to 40%, down from 60%. With the amount of healing it does, this should not have a snare. Like, this just should not have a snare. And the heal could probably be cut by like 30%, and it would still be a great, great skill. Yeah. This is a good direction, but I think more is needed here. Unstable Core. Fix an issue where this ability had a 100 millisecond cooldown per effect rather than listed 1 second, which creates situations where it was dealing significantly more damage than intended. Now, I'm not just going after Living Dark. There's a few skills like this, like Intensive Mender and Living Dark, that are both extremely powerful. But it's week 1 of the PTS. We'll keep doing testing and see exactly where it is next patch, and maybe we can get the proper changes. Obviously, I don't want to see Templar nerfed to the ground or anything like that. But this skill right now is pretty wild. Pretty wild. Restoring Light, Sacred Ground. Fix an issue where this passive was not working with Ritual of Retribution. Alright. Warden, Animal Companion, Scorch. Deep Fissure, the Magic Morph. Increase the duration of Major Breach granted from this morph to 10 seconds, up from 6. So bigger burst window for Wardens. For Magical Wardens. I like it. They needed some buffs. This is a small one, but it's in the right direction. Swarm, Growing Swarm. This morph now limits the number of active targets you can have it on to 1. Okay. Increase the damage of the area of effect portion of the ability by 50% to make up for the new limit. Okay. Green Balance, Fungal Growth. Increase the healing of this ability and its morphs by 12.5% to meet the area of effect burst heal standards. It also its cost remains the same since it covers significantly less area than the others. All right, we'll have to look at healing on Fungal Growth, which hasn't been good for a little bit. Healing Seed made some back-end improvements to this ability and its morphs to improve performance. Fixed an issue where the synergy granted from this ability and its morphs Harvest was not playing visual or sound effects. Corrupting Pollen. This ability now prioritizes lowest health enemies with Major Defile. Ragweed season is coming. Okay. Interesting. Lotus Flower. This is the crit thing that does heals on light and heavy attacks. Reduce the cost of this ability and its morphs to $13.50, down from $29.70. Huge reduction in cost. The base ability now grants Major Prophecy and Savagery while active. Green Lotus morph. This morph now increases the number of targets healed to 2, up from 1. Also increase the dealing of light attack portion to 1500, up from 1320, and heavy attack portion to 4500, up from 3960 at rank 4. Okay, a little bit more healing on this skill. Lotus Blossom. This morph now increases the duration of the effects to 60 seconds at rank 4, up from 20. All right, a lot less casting, which is nice. Nature's Grasp. Reduce the healing from this ability and the Nature's Embrace morph by 10%. Okay. I don't know much. I don't think I've ever really ran this skill. Bursting Vines. I think I run Trellis. I think this is the same as Trellis. Reduce the healing from this morph by 25% to ensure it is not stronger than other burst heal abilities such as Rush Ceremony. Can't remember what the skill is. Sorry. Ignore me. Maybe look this up. I'm reading patch notes, so I can't go and research right now. Winter's Embrace, Crystallized Shield, Shimmering Shield. Fix an issue where Major Heroism would not refresh from this ability after activating once. Okay. Ice Armor, Ice Fortress. Increase the duration of this morph to 25 seconds, up from 24. For slightly easier alignment of ability timers. All right. Two-handed weapon changes. Critical Rush. This ability now ranks up in cost reduction instead of 1.1% damage done per ranked. Reduce the base cost to 3510 down from 3780. Okay. Momentum. This ability and Smurfs now also grant major sorcery for the duration. We had talked about this before. Forward momentum, which is a snare removal. Increase the final cost of this ability to 3240 up from 2700. Increase the duration of major and minor buffs provided from this ability to 40 seconds up from 20. Interesting. A lot easier for Meg to be able to handle a stamina cost of an ability with a 40-second duration up from 20. Very, very interesting. Reverse Slice, increase the cost of this ability in Smurfs to 2430, up from 2160. Executioner Morph, this morph no longer ranks up 1.1% damage on per rank and instead reduces the cost per rank. Okay. Reverse Slice, this morph splash damage now ranks up to 100% of the original hit, up from 78% at rank 4. Alright, so the AoE splash is 100% of the person you hit and everybody around. Interesting. Very, very interesting there. One Hand and Shield, Power Bash. The damage from this ability and Smurfs are now considered bash damage and interrupts casting targets. This means the damage will increase with bonuses to bash, as well as triggering events that require you to deal bash damage. It will not, however, inherit cost reduction bonuses to bash. Okay. So there's bash reduction enchants. That's what they're saying at the end there. Power Slam. The bonus from this ability, Resentment, no longer stacks up to 10 times and now simply increases the damage of your next Power Slam by 33%. In efforts to inject some life into an incredibly niche playstyle, we've significantly amped up the viability of bash builds by giving them a true spammable. We're aware how much power is behind bash builds, however, so we'll be keeping a close eye on this functionality and see if we need to tone down the base damage to make up for its ability to stack with new bonuses. Alright, somewhere Kuryuki is very, very happy. Shield Charge, Shielded Assault, increase the shield granted from this morph to 25% of your max health, up from 15. Invasion, reduce the base cost of this morph to 3510, down from 3780. Alright, Dual Wield. Flying Dagger. This ability and morphs now also grant major sorcery. Okay. Flying Blade Morph, the base version of the skill now also grants major brutality and sorcery after casting rather than only after using the teleport version. Increase the damage of the teleport version by 50% to better reward its use. Okay. Aerospray Bombard. This morph no longer snares targets. This morph now reduces its cost as the ability ranks up, rather than increasing the duration of the negative effects on it. The immobilize remains to be 4 seconds, as it was at rank 4. So a slight nerf to Bombard. It whatever really was about the snare, it was always about the immobilize. But yeah, we'll take something. Venom Arrow. This morph now grants major brutality and sorcery for 10 seconds after casting. So poison injection gives you major brutality now. Interesting. So Flying Blade gives it to you. Poison Arrow. And there's not a sword and board skill that does it. Okay. Just curious if they were doing standardization to where every weapon line gets major brutality and sorcery. Restoration Staff, Blessing and Protection. This ability and Smurfs now follow the area of effect burst steal standards and as such have increased the cost to 4860 up from 3510. Increase the healing done from Blessing and Protection and Combat Prayer by approximately 30%, 36%, and the duration of their effects to 10 seconds up from 8. Big change to Combat Prayer and Blessing and Protection. Blessing of Restoration, increase the healing done from this morph by 12.5%, increase the duration of all buffs provided to 20 seconds up from 16. Okay, worth checking out. Steadfast Ward. Ward Ally. This morph now reduces in cost as the ability ranks up rather than increasing in shield size. Alright. Soul Magic, Soul Trap. This ability and Smurfs now only deal magic damage, but its damage will scale dynamically. Okay, so no magic or physical damage. It's just magic damage, but it will still scale. Interesting. Vampire, Vampiric Drain. Increase the damage done from this ability and its morphs by 50% per tick. See, we had a really strong Vampire Drain and then we nerfed it and now we're buffing it by 50%. Like this just yo-yoing, just... The skill's not good, so I understand bringing it back, but it's just... Yeah. Piercing Howl. Howl of Agony Morph fixed an issue where this ability's bonus damage to the target facing you could fail to work in many situations. Pounce. Fix an issue where this ability and its morphs override abilities. Carnage could be dodged and blocked despite being damaged over time. Almost there, guys. Almost there. Psijic Order, Imbue Weapon. This ability and its morphs now cost 2,700 rather than 2,715 for their stamina versions and 3,122 for the Magicka morph. These abilities originally met these values on their launch, but due to the overwhelming amount of use they saw at the time, they were increased to reach some relative cost of the other spammables. Now that many spammables in the game have received some tweaks since then to further incentivize their use, we're comfortable moving these back to a cheaper cost for those players who want a lower cost spammable at the expense of a class or weapon skill line synergy. Alright, sounds good. Assault, Magic Cadet. Fix an issue where this morph was not properly scaling with your max stamina if it was higher than your max Magicka. Okay. Sustained by Suffering. Fix an issue where this passive was activating off some effects it shouldn't have. Alright. There's a CP change. Itemization and item sets. Fix numerous issues where sets that weren't based on damage or healing were not properly labeled as such, creating confusion where some sets that applied buffs or crowd control could still trigger other sets when the core rule is that procs should not trigger other procs. Yep. The only time a set should directly trigger another set is when a set activates a core combat skill or event, such as dodging, blocking, or applying a status effect. The most noticeable fix with this is where sets such as Aegis Caller or Thunder Caller could trigger Dark Convergence, or where Dark Convergence could trigger Hrothgar, leading to insane wombo combos from one minor input. Sounds good. Ability altering weapons, Piercing Spray. Fix an issue where this set could fail to grant its bonus to bow attacks. Well, that's a problem. since it's a bow. Okay. Crafted sets Paladin's Wrath. Fix an issue where the final ticket damage from the set could return as 0. Alright. Dungeon and Arena sets. Curse of Doilmish. Fix an issue where the set could proc on the same attack that triggered a stun in some cases, bypassing the intended counterplay of the set. Alright. So, this was one of the issues that was happening with Doilmish. Doilmish dual-wield heavies were proccing from stealth. So the first attack, if you hit from cloak or stealth, was a stun for a Nightblade, meaning that the second dual wield was proccing Doilmish. And so it was an instant stun, it was an insta-jib, and people were getting deleted. And so, yeah, it goes against how other proc sets work. You look at all these other sets, like if you look at Selene, Kalurians, all these other sets have this delay in proc sets and proc set damage that allow you to have some sort of counter to it, Veladreth, whatever. This set didn't have a counter because it was proccing with your heavies. As soon as you hit your heavies, this set would proc and GG, no re, spawn back up and go get ganked again. Fire Blossom. Fix an issue where the set could fail to deal damage in many cases. Okay. Noble Duelist Silks. The set now adds 2681 weapon and spell damage to your light and heavy attacks rather than adding 1811 damage to these attacks. I would think that this seems like a lot of weapon and spell damage, but this is probably a nerf due to how powerful. It's either a nerf or it's the same, and they're just changing the standardization. We'll look at it. Undaunted Infiltrator and Unweaver, these sets now add 2,000 weapon and spell damage to your light and heavy attacks rather than 1,685 damage to these attacks. Once again, talked about this, heavy attack sets are very, very powerful. The biggest thing with like lightning heavies, it wasn't even that the damage that they were doing, is that they're undodgeable. There just wasn't enough counterplay to it. So we'll look at these on the PTS also, and see what it's doing and see what that is. Monster Mask, Glorgulok. Fix an issue where the set could fail to remove its stacks in some cases. Alright. Well, Akina fixed an issue where the set could activate in situations it shouldn't have. So you used to be able to light attack the ground or light attack from stealth. You could proc Kina and you can go into a gank. So this no longer works this way. Mythic items, Pearls of El Nofi. Fixed an issue where the set could proc from no-cost abilities, as well as some abilities while out of combat. Oh, okay. Overland, Queen's Elegance. The set now grants him power for 3 seconds after completing a fully charged heavy attack, rather than adding 2610 damage to your next direct damage attack. Yep. So they went after the DK gank build pretty quickly. Yeah. PvP source, Dark Convergence, fixed an issue where the set was failing to apply any of its damage bonuses for extra targets inside. Fixed an issue where the set's damage could end much higher than intended in some cases. Fixed an issue where the set could apply to justice neutral enemies when prevention of attacking innocents was enabled. That happened a couple times. Hrothgar's Chill, fixed an issue where this set was not triggering off many abilities that it should have, such as Daedric Mines or Trap Beast. Okay. Wrath of the Imperium, fixed an issue where the set was not applying its bonus to many attacks it should have. Okay. Trial sets, Vessel's Olaram, fixed an issue where the set did not proc off of ability source tethers, unlike other item sets that share similar proc conditions. Okay. Okay. Not a ton of balance changes, but overall I think they're pretty good. Light and heavy attack changes are pretty big. Some of these sets are interesting. There's nothing really standing out. I mean, you guys remember the last time I read patch notes, it was Plague Break and Dark Convergence and Hrothgar, and we all just kind of sat here and laughed at what it was doing and like looked at the tooltips. There's nothing like that in here where you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be ridiculous. There's some sets in here that could be, like definitely could be, but we have to test to confirm. And so anytime you have to test and they're not just glaringly obvious, that's always a good thing. Obviously something will be missing here. I'm sure there's stuff that's not coming to me right now, but we'll figure that out. But yeah, that's the end of this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide in the section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.